body of Christ has the gift of shepherding than there are men. In fact, that's the greatest gift to use for to be a Sunday school teacher or a group leader or house church leader or whatever. Why? Because when I go to church, I want someone to shepherd me, not just teach me Bible class. And the gift of pastor shepherd is the gift of shepherding and will shepherd people along with teaching them. And by the way, some would call this a hyphenated gift because in the book of Ephesians, it calls it pastor hyphen teacher. So what they're saying is if you have the gift of shepherding, you should have some teaching ability to go along with that. Comforting. When we're hurting, we want someone to comfort us. When there's a death in the family, we all have to get on the phone. There's certain family members that have to be called. There's certain things that have to be taken care of. But somewhere along the line, you're probably going to call someone who has the gift of showing mercy because they will minister to your needs as well. The mercy shower is a spirit-given capacity and desire to serve God by identifying with and comforting those who are in distress. This is a person who understands and comforts his and her fellow Christians. Mercy showers are people that work with people who are hurting. They're able to put themselves in our shoes. They're able to relate with what's happening in our lives. I remember years ago, we used to go to a camp and they brought in a bunch of retarded kids and I said, that's not me. I just couldn't do that. This one lady was over there. This little kid was in a wheelchair and had thrown up all on themselves, and she was cleaning it up with a big smile and telling keep making the kid feel well and all. And I'm thinking, thank God for those type of people because they can do it, but I can't do it. And some of you here are saying, well, I could do that. Some of you are saying, boy, I'm glad I don't have to do it. So, but it's the mercy showers that do that. They are, by the way, mercy showers make great counselors because they can relate to what you're going through. Exhorters make great counselors because when you go to an exhorter, he analyzes the problem. He says, all right, here's what I want you to do, A, B, C. Come back in 2 weeks. Next week we're going to do C, D, and E, because they're always looking for practical steps to help you through. Mercy showers can do the same thing because they can relate and empathize and sympathize with you. And yet, although sometimes when we go to a counselor, it might be better if we had the prophet that got to help point out sin but the mercy showers there's a weakness with the mercy shower, and that is some mercy showers tend to, let's say, to take their work home with them. And it makes it very hard on them. One thing good about the exhorter is he can leave it at the office, But I was surprised to find out that the highest rate of suicide in America were wasn't psychiatrists, but psychologists, people that did counseling. And the reason is a lot of them, they let other people's problems eat them up. And mercy showers have to be careful because you can let other people's problem eat you up. All right, man needs a helping hand. Just practical, everyday application, working with their hands. I remember years ago, I was in the sign business. I had a fire, and we decided to build a shop at my house instead of renting another building. And we worked on it all summer long, and I did a lot of my work outside because we didn't have facilities. And now it was getting cold, it was getting winter. I didn't have the money to get finished. And one morning I woke up all this banging and everything, and finally I had to get up and see what was going on. And I looked at it was this bunch of guys from my church was out there on my roof with their shingles, their hammers and nails, and they were all waking me up. I couldn't sleep, But these were men with the gift of service. And, a lot of time we think of service, we think of all the kitchen committee and all that. And that's part of people with the gift of service. But there's a lot of areas. It's people that just wants to give practical, everyday help that we all need to the church and to fellow Christians. All right, it's this gift of service, the server, the spirit-given capacity and desire to serve God, rendering practical help in both physical and spiritual matters. A person who meets the practical needs of his fellow Christians and the church. Now, we tend to take this gift and put it on the bottom of the totem pole. It's the least valuable. One guy told me, he says, I can't sing, and I can't teach, and I can't. He went through this whole big long list, I can't. I must just have the gift of service. If you only have the gift of service, there's no only to it. It's a valuable gift. I read a story about a salesman who walked into the office of the LA Raiders. Any football fans here? One. Any LA Raider fans? Well, anyhow, he walks into the office of the LA Raiders, and there's a receptionist desk there, and there's nobody there. But over at the copy machine, there's a young lady. So he looks over, and thinking that she was the receptionist, he says, "Young lady, what is your job here?" She turned around and says, "My job is to win the Super Bowl." And I thought that was rather interesting. If you have the gift of service, your job is to support the rest of the team the same way as she does in trying to win the Super Bowl. Your job is to support the rest of the team in reaching people for Christ, in ministering to people and helping to change people's lives, the same as your pastor's job is. It's a different role, but it's just as valuable as the gift that God has given your pastor. So never think of any of the gifts as being lower than any of the other. God has given us the gifts he wants each one of us to have, and he wants us to use that gift to his glory and to be part of the team that he's put us on. That's what when we talk about, that's why we call this chart team ministry. Team ministry is not a handful of you pulled over here as a team for a special project. Yes, that is a team. But team ministry is the whole body of Christ and the whole local church, everybody in here working for one goal, working together as a team, and everyone is needed. Man needs financial aid. From time to time, we all have financial needs, and I think we're probably in an era right now where we know people around us that have financial needs because of the economic times we go. A lot of times, some of these people that have financial needs don't need someone with finances to help them. They need financial counseling because they're hurting, their finances are hurting because they're making non-biblical financial decisions. See? But basically, God has given us people with the gift of giving. Now, it's the spirit-given capacity and desire to serve God by giving of our material resources far beyond the tithe to further the work of God. The person who meets the financial needs of his fellow Christians and church. Now, usually people with the gift of giving have the ability to make money, but not always. Sometimes they simply work for wages like the rest of us, but even still, they can give and give and give and give far beyond their tithe. Every Christian has the responsibility to tithe, but yet God has given some people the gift of giving that allows them to just go beyond further and further and further. People with the gift of giving, Pastor, you need those on your board. And not just because they've got money, but because they can usually make wise financial decisions, and they'll help you make the right decisions for your ministry. Now, another thing that I've noticed about the gift of giving is spiritual gifts have a tendency for opposite type gifts, for opposite people to attract to each other. In other words, we did a seminar one time, and if you take the spiritual gifts inventory, 24 is as high as you can get on the list when you're grading the gift. This one guy had 24, the highest you could get on the gift of teaching. His wife had 0. The only person I ever saw had got a 0 on any of the gifts, right? The opposites attract. Not so with the gift of giving. I'm not sure why. I believe it's because God he doesn't want us in conflict over our money, especially when it comes to giving it away. That usually if I find a man who has a gift of giving, his wife is very high in gift of giving as well, and vice versa. Because it takes a couple to agree on their giving. And people with the gift of giving are sensitive to the needs around them. It's not that, yes, they'll give $100,000 to build a new room in the church and equip it and all that, but they're sensitive to the people around them that need help and are willing to do that. The scripture says to give to the necessity of the saints. So if you have the gift of giving, don't just give to the church need. Be sensitive to those people around us that have needs. Here's how a lot of us like to handle our money. He says, well, we like to handle our money like Charles, I guess. Well, Charles, when I baptize you, everything that goes under belongs to God. I hope there's none of us that do that. Leadership. We all need leadership. We all are followers, and we all are looking for leadership. And if there's not good leadership out there, we will follow bad leadership, and that's what happened. It's been said that in order to have a dream and to carry it through to completion, 84% of people need the dream laid out for them and constant supervision along the way in order to fulfill that dream. 14% of the people have the ability that if you set the dream for them, set the big picture, the goal, and then with minimal supervision, checking in on them now and then to keep them on track, they can fulfill that dream. 2% of the people have the ability to create a dream and carry it through to completion by themselves. And this is basically people that have the gift of administration. The Spirit-given capacity and desire to serve God by organizing, administering, and promoting leading the various affairs of the church. This is a person who gives direction and leads the church ministry. Now, the King James Bible, the word Kybernesis is translated administrator. If I had all this material to rewrite today, I wouldn't use that term. In fact, some of the other translations translates the word Kybernesis to ruling, another one translates to government, another one leading, because I don't want you to think of the gift of administration as being some kind of a glorified file clerk. It's not. It is the gift of leadership. The Kybernesis was a nautical term. He was a steersman for a ship. And he wasn't a steersman for a little sailboat that we see out in the calendar picture, the little beautiful sailboat out there on the nice calm lake. He wasn't a steersman for a ship like that. He was a steersman for a ship that looked like that. A ship in troubled waters. He was a steersman who knew how to bring the ship in through the high waves, through the rocks, through the shoals, bring it into harbor safely. And that was the term that was used and that was translated the gift of administration. Man needs fellowship. This was one of the things I left out in my early class. We got time to fellowship later. This is serious stuff. Let's learn what we're teaching, right? Anybody know the definition of fellowship? Right? It's two fellows in a ship. It's easy. Who needs fellowship? We all do. Number one reason why people go to church. There's been a number of surveys made, and the reasons we give is we want to learn the Word of God. We want to make sure our children learn the Word of God. We want to take our children to church and they learn. But the number one reason why people go to church is for fellowship. They want to be around other people. All right, who makes up that? The entire body. All the exhorters, the prophets, the teachers, the evangelists, the shepherds, everybody. We all fellowship with each other. And we need that. All right, let's look up and down the middle. Number 21. I call this a catalyst need. The reason, a catalyst takes two things and puts it together, and that's what we're doing here. We're taking all of the needs on the left, and we're putting all the needs on the right. And basically, I said it earlier in the first session, we need to serve our fellow man. It's a need that we all have, Christians and non-Christians alike. That need that God has put in our souls, and you're never going to be happy as long as you've got your life wrapped up in yourself. God says you need to serve your fellow man. It's part of all of us. Let's turn this to a mathematical problem. And on the left-hand side, let's add all that up, 1 through 19 there. And what do we get after we meet the needs, all these needs of the individual? We get a mature Christian. Now, obviously, we're not all mature. We haven't all had all these needs met in us. Some churches are stronger in some areas and weaker in other areas. But here's what I'm saying. The more of these needs that we meet in a person's life, the more mature that person becomes. You know, it's nice that prophet tells us what's wrong and a teacher tells us what's right, but if nobody tells me how to, it just leaves me feeling guilty, frustrated, discouraged. I know I'm wrong. I don't know how to correct it. I know no application to it. And vice versa. You can give a person loads and loads of practical teaching, but if you've never convinced them that they need to make some changes, you've never shown them what's wrong and what has to be corrected, then, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. So all of these things are necessary, and all of us play a role to some extent in that. Now, on the other side, this is a team that we're talking about. It's the entire local church. It's all of you. It's all of the members working together as a team to fulfill the Great Commission for reaching and teaching a generation for Christ. All right, we add those two together. What do we have? Lasting growth. Lasting growth. I've been in a lot of growing churches. I've been in a lot of churches that's not growing. I've been in churches that, man, they're great on evangelism. We had a church that about once a month, they would send us an email that said, last week we led 23 people to Christ. And then another week they'd say, we led 18 people to Christ. We sent another one. We sent our evangelism teams out Saturday, and we got 37 decisions for Christ. So after a while, I said, hey, let's check this church and see what they're doing. And they were not growing. They were reaching all these people for Christ, but their attendance was like 300. A year later, it's 300. Well, they led, they probably led 300 people to Christ or more during the year. But the church wasn't growing. See, what happens is when we only do evangelism, they come in the front door and they go out the back door because we're not meeting their needs, right? And a church that does the opposite, they're not doing any evangelism. They're ministering to all the needs. We got everybody's tithing. Everybody's doing everybody's in Sunday school. Everybody's in their groups and all, but nobody's doing evangelism. The church is doomed to die because it's not going to grow. So what we need is to have lasting growth and continued growth in the churches. I am really impressed with the growth of this ministry here. Page 8.